feedback from that.
Okay.
If questions could ask.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here and giving so much time to our students. And we're going to have two exhibitions this morning. This is Olivia. She's going to be going first. We're going to actually first ask the panel to introduce themselves, although you all seemingly know each other.
It's kind of creepy.
Important. It is a little creepy. And then Olivia's going to do her presentation. Then we'll have some time for questions from the panel, questions from the audience. We should have a little break in between the two that we had this morning, and we think we'll have you out of here about 10:30. Okay. All set? Okay. Can we start right here? Just move right down the line.
Hi, my name is Kelly Nichols. I work in Cheney School District. I am the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Well,
Good morning, Olivia. My name is Mike Putiat, and I teach for Whitworth and also run a couple of nonprofits, educational related nonprofits. Hello again. Travis Franklin. I'm a senior program officer at the Gates Foundation.
Darcelina Gloria, I work for Washington State Charter Schools Association. And I'm the regional director. I just changed to regional director of advocacy. Like the other one was longer.
I'm Teresa McGee. I'm the yoga teacher at the community school and meditation.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come to our presentation. My name is Olivia Hilton. This is my mom, Anastasia. I just want to, beforehand, thank everybody who's gotten me to where I am, like teachers, my friends. Just thank you, all of you, for being there for me. I'm a fighter. What does this mean? So this has taken a lot of different forms throughout my life. This presentation itself is sort of like a demonstration of that, because at first, when I first practiced, I had a bunch of printed out evidence. I had really polished slides, but I didn't really have a story. And that's sort of like something that I've done a lot. I kind of want to like throw evidence at people and tell people like, I was successful, look at this amazing test score that I got, or look at this super cool art project that I did. But it's sort of hard for me to reflect on struggles throughout my life. Sorry, this is really hard.
You got this. You got it.
For a long time, I sort of wanted to make this like image for myself of somebody who was really perfect, who had great grades, and I wanted to perfect my appearance and my relationships and everything in my life. When I was a kid, I was in like a really competitive environment. I was in elementary school breaking wooden boards in Taekwondo and winning in chess tournaments and doing theater, and I always wanted to be the lead in the plays. I always had a really competitive group of friends, and we would all like talk about our grades and talk about our achievements, and everybody's parents would like compare them to me. And part of what I liked about that was that I was always the person that they would refer to when they would say, be more like this person. But it also created a lot of pressure. I was labeled when I was really young as somebody who could like do anything and memorize anything and just be successful in life. And I really liked to win, as you can see from, me smiling in front of a chessboard. Pretty much everything was a competition. Like, my friends' parents knew about my test scores before I did, and it caused a lot of fights in people's households. I would hold singing competitions on the playground because I was the best singer. I memorized the presidents and the periodic table and pretty much anything that I could get my hands on, poems. I would stand in the living room reciting poems. We did an invention convention at my school, and I remember sitting in my basement gluing together like these glasses that would magnify the room, And then some girl with like a paint roller and a piece of toast and some butter won, and I was so upset. So I've always been pretty competitive. One of the biggest areas of my competitiveness was chess. I sort of always joked that like the winning team was whatever school I was at, and I guess that sort of sounds like bragging, but each school that I went to, they would put out these papers and they would write like, oh, this school won again and this school won again, and they would put my name in the paper all the time. That background picture is an article that somebody wrote about me, and I liked being recognized for my achievements, but it was also a lot of pressure, and I always felt like I was sort of fighting to be in first place. Anytime that I got second place, it was just like, felt like the end of the world. Another way that sort of showed up was my dad. He was really big into chess at the time, and I would come home to the board being set up at the table, and if I didn't want to play, I didn't want to be successful, I would go to tournaments and I would hide in the hallways after any game that I lost, because losing a game felt like the end of the world. So chess was sort of like a constant fight, and most of the time it wasn't when I was sitting at the board. Sorry. In 4th grade, I went to a gifted school, and it was a school that I had to test into. A lot of my friends got a lot more competitive around that time. Here's a picture of me in math at school. My sort of once small pool of competitors at my really tiny elementary school was growing, and everybody around me was also somebody that tested into the school. So I started to feel like I had to work extra hard to achieve the same recognition that I had before. There was one time that I had a project for this history class, and I spent 7 hours at the table researching and writing all my stuff for it. And it was a 4th grade history class, so yeah. I also, in like middle school, elementary school, had a lot of insecurity because of things that were going on in my life that weren't related to my academics. In 5th grade, I was also diagnosed with scoliosis. Here's a picture of me with my back brace. I got made fun of in the halls. I got asked if I was wearing a corset. Somebody told me I looked bulky. And the yearbook teacher came up to me to take a picture of me for this thing. It was called Spread the Word to End the Word. And it was basically this program for trying to end the use of a word that was used for disabled people. And it felt like I was being used to push a narrative, and they wanted to put me on the front page, and it was just like, this poor helpless girl, she has to wear a back brace, she's affected by your words. And at the time I also struggled with my eating. This picture in the middle is a picture of me with some of my friends. I was significantly shorter and much skinnier than all of them, and I always just felt like I sort of stood out, and not in the way that I wanted to. I was confident in my academics and interests, but this aspect of my life was really difficult for me. So my freshman year was pretty crazy. Yes, I did have green hair. I really struggled my freshman year with pretty much everything, with my grades, with my appearance. Physically, as you can see, I turned into a completely different person. I had the same nose, the same eyes, but I was 50 pounds heavier and 5 inches taller. And I sort of cracked under pressure. I was taking a lot of honors classes, and after a while, I got really tired of it, and I felt like I needed to, break outside of that. I had a really big, rebellious phase, kind of to the max. I dyed my hair green because I thought that the blonde didn't really represent me anymore, and I was not doing well in my classes, and I made friends with a lot of people that weren't super great for me. And just overall, it was a really difficult year. I also struggled with really bad anxiety and depression this year, and that affected my schoolwork. My eating got pretty bad at this time too, and most of that was because of issues with my body image. But near the end of the year, we had a project in our English class where we had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then we had to create these like character cards. And this was sort of the first time that I really explored art as a way to like heal myself. And I feel like this was one of the first things that year that I really put effort into, because I felt like it was a way that I could showcase my abilities. I spent a lot of that year feeling like I'd lost all of my smarts or my intelligence, and I was just sort of like, I couldn't compare to everybody else. And this was sort of like a representation of the way that if I did put in the effort, I could compare to everybody else, and I was just sort of directing my focus elsewhere. So with this, I sort of discovered like a hopefulness for myself that I hadn't felt in a while. My teacher actually reached out over that summer to ask if he could keep him for a future class. I have him right here. He didn't keep him because I was 1,300 miles away in Arizona in recovery for an eating disorder. So, but I also, that year, this is something from my law class, I also discovered that I really like law, and that might be a possible career path for me in the future. So why did I choose TCS? There's like a million different reasons that I give to people when they ask me this, because I haven't really told people the real reason. Sometimes I tell people that it's because I needed a change of pace from like a big traditional high school. Sometimes I tell people that it's because I needed somewhere safe to recover. And sometimes I tell people that it was because I was familiar with the style, with projects. In reality, I actually got prescribed TCS by my doctor, which is kind of a funny story. So she told me that she thought it would be a good fit for me, and I was totally against the idea at first because I didn't really like the idea of being prescribed to school. I went into tour at TCS, and the day that I toured was wonderful. Like, everybody was so nice, and it didn't feel the way that some other schools that I'd been to had felt. It didn't feel like nobody asked me what my GPA was. Nobody asked me, like, what my biggest accomplishment was. Nobody asked me what grades I got on tests. It was just like, who are you? So that felt really nice, and the day after I toured, I was enrolled because TCS was, like, the absolute best fit for me at the time. So this year was basically just spent settling in. I met a really great group of friends. Everybody was super nice. I sort of started to get back into the hang of doing schoolwork again, and my first few projects, my grades weren't the best, but I was sort of just working through a lot at that time. And on the other side behind me in the crown, this was from 5th session, where we did No Holds Barred, which was like a Shakespeare project. But that year, I sort of was just trying to figure out, like, who am I? What do I like to do? Like, how am I as a student now? I felt like I'd sort of been so far removed from who I was before that, I don't know. I needed to rediscover myself and build myself back up. That year, I really fought to overcome, like, a lot of the issues and the insecurity that I'd felt my freshman year, and I went into my junior year in a really good place. And then I felt like I wasn't getting enough recognition. I felt like I wanted to have that feeling back from when I was younger of people love me and people recognize me and people recognize my accomplishments. So I took on a lot. I sort of felt like a one-trick pony. I told everybody, like, oh, I know all the presidents in order. And that wasn't quite as impressive as it was when I was 6. So I started doing geography, and I got super competitive with one of my friends. This was like a geography game, and we would like click on the states as fast as we possibly could to try to get really fast times. And then I also struggled with one of our first projects, Mobius Mosaic, I had a really hard time with collaboration in that project because prior to that, I hadn't had a ton of experience with collaboration, and most of the time it had just been like, everyone for themselves. You get your own grades. Your grades don't rest on anybody else. So I felt like, wow, this is so unfair. I am being asked to be in a project with all of these people, and all of them have such different personalities and different learning styles, and I don't know how to navigate this. So, oops, I'm missing a slide. So my first exhibition that year was called Why I'm a Bee. And everybody thought that was like a funny play on words, but I actually kind of related to a bee at the time. I felt like I only stung people when like it was necessary and when they totally deserved it. But I sort of wasn't really reflecting a lot. I think Nate asked me a question about how I'm going to do better as a collaborator in the future, and I said I was going to pick better group mates. In the real world, I'm going to be asked to work with people that I don't really get along with, and people that have different personalities than I do. And that's not a fault of theirs or a fault of mine, it's just a reality of life, and it's something that I've sort of worked through this year and the second part of my 301 year to try and improve at. I also improved a lot in my writing. This was something that I was super insecure about for a little while because I'd sort of missed a good portion of my education for being during COVID and being away in Arizona. So I think 301 year was a great year for improvement in my writing. I also improved a lot this year, but I think this was such an interesting improvement because all of my sentences used to be really like simple, and then TCS taught me a lot about how to write a good essay and how to structure an essay and how to have meaning in my writing, and that really helped me in my running start. So running start was something that I decided to do because I saw an exhibition of one of my peers at the end of my 301 year who I'd just seen change completely as a person. Like huge increase in maturity, something that I had sort of been seeking out for myself in the ability to speak it and not just write it. So at the end of that year, I told everybody at my exhibition that I wanted to do Running Start and that I wanted to go to SFCC. And during my questions panel, somebody asked me what I would do if I failed. That was sort of like, wow. Like, oh my gosh, the room's spinning. What am I going to do if I fail? Why would I fail? So I sort of started to feel really insecure about my ability to do well in Running Start. I'd heard from a lot of people that, like, this really great student didn't do well or flunked out of it. And I was just super worried going into it that I wasn't going to do well. So I pretty much just prepared myself for the worst. In the first quarter, I took 225 pages of notes for a single class. I studied for hours and hours for the exams. I made these ridiculously long study guides, and I was like set on getting a 4.0 in everything. So that poli-sci class that I took that was so difficult, people switched colleges so they wouldn't have to take the professor, and I heard everybody around me telling me that percentages aren't everything and that my grades aren't a reflection of who I am, but the class was really difficult and I really, really, really wanted to get that 4.0. So by the end of the quarter, we had to take a final exam. It was 200 points, it was a huge portion of our grade, and I figured out that I had to get 181 out of 200 questions correct. And I was like, oh, I can totally do this. I've done great on all the last exams. I studied for hours and hours, I opened the exam, all of the questions were completely irrelevant and super difficult. So I probably cried through about half of that exam, and I ended up getting 186 out of 200. And just seeing that my grade was the highest in the class was like right back to where I was before. I got the highest, I'm the best. And that sort of carried over into the next quarter, where I started comparing myself to everybody. I didn't really have any issues this quarter with finishing with a 4.0. I had a sociology class where we didn't have like a specific grading scale, but my biology class, we would take these tests and they had extra credit points. And so I wanted to get an 84 out of 80 on one of the tests because that was the max that I could get. So I got super competitive with everyone in the class, people that I'd never talked to, my friend who I took the class with, and I ended up pulling a lot of all-nighters. My first test, I got an 81 out of 80, which was, I was happy with it, but I wasn't super happy with it. My second test, I got an 83 out of 80 after pulling an all-nighter, and then I convinced myself that pulling all-nighters is the way to go, and that that's a super healthy thing to do and the perfect way to get good grades in my classes. So then for the third exam, I pulled an all-nighter, and I got a 74 out of 80, and I was like really, really upset. So just overall, I think this class put a lot of strain on my mental health because along with the comparison to other people's grades, I was comparing myself to other people for pretty much every other reason. I was comparing things about my personality to other people, things about my appearance. I was spending a lot of time on social media looking at profiles of people that I'd never even met. And it was just like, I wanted their lives, and I wanted to be a different person. And I didn't really notice that these were like returning patterns at the time because my grades looked so good. So I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is a really negative thing, and this is like not something that I want to be doing. I was just thinking, oh, my percentages are great. I have 102% in biology. So I didn't really do a ton of work that quarter or a ton of reflection. And that was what I spent this quarter doing. So this quarter, I have sort of relaxed a lot. I haven't put as much effort into like, I need to take thousands of pages of notes. I haven't been making crazy study guides or pulling all-nighters for my exams. And I've been hanging out with my friends and doing things that I enjoy, which has really helped me a lot. I think this quarter has been a huge quarter of growth for me. And out of all my lessons that I learned in my time in Running Start, I think the biggest one was that I don't need some like big fight in my life. I don't need a biology class. I don't need a poli-sci class. I don't need an eating disorder for my life to be meaningful. Okay, so at my last exhibition, Nate asked me if there was anything that I could be like just okay at. And I was sort of like caught off guard at first because I was like, I don't know. I mean, obviously there are things that I'm not great at that I haven't practiced a ton, but when I do set my mind to something, I always focus in super duper hard on it and try to make it the best. I sort of did that with graphic design. I made these slides with graphic design, and when I first started, I was horrible at it, and I just worked and worked and worked all the time, used it for everything, and I improved. But there has never really been a thing that I've been interested in that I just let myself be kind of mediocre at, and that thing was filmmaking. So for the past probably 2.5 years, I've been in Nate's filmmaking class, and I've also been doing this year a couple of short films. Amara featured me in her 50-hour slam. I was in a short film for one of her friends, and I don't know how to click on the video. Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay.
So, you killed a man and then lied to my face. No, I swear. I took him and I was gonna put him in front of a car because then it wouldn't be my fault. I thought it would just be a random guy, but then it was you. And I didn't want another girl's life to be ruined like mine would have been. So I helped you. Helped me? You've done everything but helped me. I didn't even know you, and then you forced me to help you bury this random guy. What if I did? You would have gotten arrested for killing him. No, and if you had put him in front of my car. And
So that was one of the films that I acted in. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. But I've edited a lot of videos for TCS. I edited a news segment. I edited one of the videos for the grants. And I made a couple of just like sort of fun videos. And I've learned that I don't really have to be like super amazing. I don't have to be the super filmmaker to enjoy doing it and to enjoy being in films, acting in films, editing, filming. It's just like, it's a hobby that I like to do, and it's not something that I would consider to be like my greatest life accomplishment or something that I improved at, some struggle that I fought through to become like the best filmmaker ever. So recently, my mom suggested that I apply to the Honors College at WSU. And I was considering it, but it felt like I was sort of going back to years of non-traditional education. I went to a charter school, I went to a private school, I went to a gifted school, I went to TCS, which is project-based, and I kind of just wanted to feel like a normal student for once, like a normal college student. And like that's something that I've been picturing for myself for a long time, to just kind of, you know, get lost in a crowd and not have to be like some person that feels like I'm constantly under the scrutiny of other people. So I decided not to apply to the honors college, even if it was something that sounded interesting to me. I want to have like a normal college experience while I'm at WSU. And that was just like, I don't know, it was kind of a hard decision because part of me felt like I was letting myself down by not taking this opportunity. But I think I was also making a choice that I wouldn't have made previously, which was sort of a way that I've grown a lot. My dad recently said something to me that I probably wouldn't be saying if he was in the room right now. He said, "You are probably the smartest person in this family, if only you weren't so crazy." And that's just sort of like not something that I think represents me at all. I think he really associates me with my freshman year and thinks like anything past that doesn't really count. And I've worked really hard through Running Start, and I'm really proud of everything that I've done. And I think that my accomplishments deserve to be recognized, whether I get like a 98 or an 100, or whether I go to the honors college or whether I don't, or whether I'm the best at everything. And yeah, I don't know. That has sort of been a struggle for a long time, is just feeling like I didn't measure up and feeling like nothing that I did was good enough. So I also, falling back into old problem patterns was an issue this year, and I sort of used art to get out of that. I've been doing art for a very long time. I mean, I was doing these my freshman year, and it's just always been something that I sort of enjoyed, but like a lot of other things, it sort of had to be perfect. It had to be hyper-realistic. I had to practice every single drawing thousands and thousands of times. I had to draw every single day for weeks on end so that it would improve. And this year I took up painting, which was something that I sort of considered myself to be bad at, so I never did it. I brought in a couple of my paintings over the last year just to like show the improvement. This was one of my first ones that I did, and I absolutely hated it. I hid it in my closet. I didn't want my mom to see it because I thought that it wasn't good enough. I painted one of my friends, and I'm going to do a lot of them for my graduation gifts for them. And I also painted this. You guys probably recognize who this is. But one thing that I've sort of struggled with over time was self-portraits. So I always felt like I didn't really know what I looked like, and anybody that knew me sophomore and junior year would know that trying to get a picture of me without my hands in front of my face was really hard. I've always really struggled with like I felt like I didn't know what I looked like. I had a really bad problem with facial dysmorphia. And yeah, I mean, pictures of my friends, I was either just somebody who had their hands in front of their face or a hand coming in from the side of a picture. So I always tried to do self-portraits because every artist does self-portraits. On this side over here, there is a self-portrait, the one that's sort of more in black and white. That was the first version that I did, and then I altered it because I didn't like how I looked, and then it didn't look like me at all. And then recently, I tried to do a drawing, a self-portrait, and again, I looked at it and just didn't feel like it looked like me at all. I have a problem when I'm drawing where I just constantly correct every single thing for hours and hours and hours until it looks exactly how I want it to. And painting is a little bit different because certain things can't really be changed. You can't like erase paint the way that you can erase a pencil. So as sort of like a final challenge for myself, I decided to paint myself. And I didn't put as much effort into it as I have with previous paintings because I didn't want it to feel like something where I was forcing myself to be perfect at painting myself. I just wanted to paint myself the way that I saw myself and have fun with it. So I think this idea of trying to everybody else is something that I want to carry forward in my life, not just in art, but in all other areas. So in 10 years, I see myself in a career, I see myself with college degrees, and I also see myself making mistakes. I've always considered myself to be a fighter and to fight for the things that I believe in, and I think one of the biggest fights in my life has been trying to accept myself how I am. Oh, yeah, they're ringing a bell at me. One recent fight that I dealt with was college applications. I had a really hard time with pretty much every aspect of it. I didn't apply to the University of Washington because I thought I wouldn't get in. I stared at the screen before I submitted my WSU application for probably 5 minutes because I just didn't want to submit it. My essay took me months to write, when in reality it actually took me like a day because it took me months to put it off and then a day to write it. And I think that process really showed me that one of my biggest fears is being rejected. Sorry. And by submitting my application, which I had been putting off for a long time, I was sort of challenging that. So I've been accepted to WSU for fall of 2025. I'm going to double major in biology and psychology, which are two things that I've always been really interested in. And I'm really looking forward to this next chapter in my life because I think it's going to allow me to really grow as a person and to move on from just all of the stuff in my adolescence that was really difficult. So, while not all the things that I brought in to show you guys today are like my best work or my most impressive work, they all tell the story of my education so far. I learned the most important lessons from my struggles, not from my successes. There's something that chess teachers would always tell us during our chess classes, and it's a Capablanca quote: "You learn much more from a game you lose than from a game you win. You'll have to lose hundreds of games before becoming a good player." And I think that really applies to my life because I lose all the time, and I don't like to tell people about it. But when I do lose, I feel like I learn a lot more than I do when I get the highest score on my poli-sci final, or when I do well on a biology test. I want my legacy to be that of somebody who learned and grew over time, and not somebody who was perfect. I want to be somebody that has an impact on people. And that's why I want to be a lawyer. I want to stop fighting against everything. Probably going to be doing a lot of that. But I also want to fight for something. And I also just want to fight for myself. Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot.
Just a quick time check, everybody. We have 8 minutes left in this session. Plenty of time for questions from.
I just want to say you're so brave. And I'm going to cry. I have a daughter with an eating disorder, so I totally get what you're saying. Her more competition was sports, and so that was really triggered it. But I just want to say, I feel like you're reaching the healthy point because you're noticing when you're starting to fall back into those behaviors, and you're taking time for yourself. You're being with your friends. You're doing art. So continue to do that. You are enough.
Thank
Just
you.
like you are right now, okay? Really impressed with you.
First of all, you're not crazy. Second of all, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing all the things that you shared. And at one point you said, what you shared with us was not showing all of the magnificent things that you've done, but that's not real. You're showing us what's real, which is really important, right? I don't necessarily have questions, but I just want to make sure that when you go to WSU, that you have your friends that are going to go.
Yeah, Amara's going with me and a lot of other friends.
Because you really need that group of support around you that you spend time with, and you make sure that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Because it's really important for you to do that. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
You did a great job.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah.
We were part of your middle part of that journey. And I remember interacting with you and seeing those things and wondering, like, man, I wonder what is driving you to feel the need to be like that. And it is so good to see you, like, on the healthier side of things, because we were pretty worried about you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Your vulnerability is really impressive. You said earlier, your courage is remarkable. So, and definitely you are enough. And it's a hard thing to internalize, I understand.
Yeah.
But know that it's true. Have you identified specific red flags that will help you recognize when you're falling into the former patterns that aren't as healthy mentally? Because when you're in college, as was said, you're going to need a lot of support to make sure that those old habits don't come back.
I think one of the biggest things is like sort of where my motivation's coming from. And a lot of times in the past, I've tried to be motivated for things. I've motivated myself really in unhealthy ways by comparing myself to other people, comparing myself to my friends, my family, everybody. And I think just that, like, I've gotten really good at recognizing when I'm doing that.
Mhm.
And that was sort of what I did this last quarter when I realized that sitting in my room, pulling an all-nighter and crying and thinking about how everybody else is going to be better than me is probably not the best way to motivate myself to get an 83.
Yep.
So I think just that, and also when I stop engaging in things that I like to do, my hobbies, or when my hobbies become just another way to like show off or become more of a perfectionist.
Your art is remarkable.
Thank you.
So it's a nice thing. But I hope that you find a place where art, for the sake of just doing art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to commend, like the evidence we witnessed today of your learning and growth and, fighting for yourself and, excited, for how you'll channel that energy to change the world and make an impact. You're relentless, right? And I love that. And I think you'll also come, they're not the best of circumstances, but you come with an experience and context that will really allow you to thrive in college. You'll be kind of an elder. You'll
Yeah.
be among many young people who this will be their first struggle, this will be their first big pond. And you'll be like, oh, I've been there, I've done that, I got this, right? I know how to take care of myself. I'm able to impact you, to be a good friend, to be good to myself, right? I know what I need and I know how to get what I need and advocate for myself. And that's huge. I'm so excited for you and what's to come in your studies and in your future career. And your art is absolutely magnificent.
Thank
so
you.
I just hope you keep up with that and like art notes, love notes for people. Here's, just something, that gift that could get you something. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I'm gonna cry, so I'm just gonna say that I've been a joy. You come over to advisory, and you're in a bright spot, and thank you for sharing all that, because I didn't know, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
We've had a good run together.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed that you joined our class partway through. Filmmaking kindergarten with you has been one of my favorite things from this past year.
Thank you.
That class is really intentionally named because we're trying to signal
Yeah.
that this is play, that we don't know what we're doing, and that's okay. And I always joke that we almost get to first grade every year. But the idea is to invite complete amateurs in, and I put myself into that bucket. And working with you in a context where we're just aiming for pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of wouldn't it be fun. Quietly, my favorite moment of the presentation was when you told us that you didn't sign up for the honors college. I think that is that shows such a self-awareness of what's good for me, what's the pattern that I've fallen into in the past, and the fact that you can identify that and make a change, I think gives me so much confidence, not that I didn't already have a boundary of confidence, but gives me more confidence going forward this is somebody who is not only talented in all these ways, but also has that level of self-awareness that is going to bring it over. My story is not totally different from yours, in that achieving perfectionism, this was a part of my story. And I really want to encourage you when you get to WSU to find the analog of filmmaking kindergarten. Find the thing that you can be super mediocre at. I went and sophomore year of college, joined the choir. You've heard me sing. There's no natural gift here. And I put in no time to get like significantly better. It was something that I chose explicitly because I am not standing down. I am a part of a group. I am surrounded by people who are way better at this, and I almost have no business being here. I don't know what it'll be for you, but I really want to encourage you to find that anchor of slight anonymity and definite mediocrity.
Yeah.
Those, gosh, I hope for mediocrity for you.
Thank you.
in some very specific context. I'm so proud of you. Well done, Olivia. Friends, we got time for a little break. We got coffee over there. No shame in having a breakfast cookie. No one will judge you.
Or several breakfast.
Yeah. Bathroom is down the hall. Oh, we're gonna send you out with coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Bathrooms are down the hall, and we're gonna get our next pyramid